I actually think when it comes to subpoena compliance, we should follow the Jim Jordan standard. Jim Jordan's obstruction of justice committees that he's overseen have less credibility today than they did when we convened just 3 weeks ago. Jim Jordan called a 10-year-old rape victim a liar. A 10-year-old rape victim was called a liar by the ranking member of this committee. But what is worse is the reason that he did it is because he doesn't like what that rape victim represents. The chairman just referenced in the face of continued obstruction, and I think it's quite rich that we are talking about subpoena compliance under a chairman of the full committee who was absolutely out of subpoena compliance in the last Congress. So we're going to haul witnesses in here today and claim that they did not comply with subpoenas or requests. And that request is so rich because it's coming from a chairman who himself did not comply with the January 6 committee's request. So May 31, you see a letter sent to then Representative Jordan asking that he honor his subpoena. He was asked over and over and over, you were a witness to a crime. You were a witness to the greatest crime ever committed with the most criminals ever indicted in America. Will you help your country? Will you comply with that subpoena? No compliance, crickets, absolute defiance of the subpoena. And because of that defiance, the chairman was referred, and it's still pending, to the House Ethics Committee. And why? Well, it's because he took an oath. And I want to have the congressional oath put up there, but the congressional oath mandates that members of Congress defend the Constitution without any mental reservation, or as it says on the slide, purpose of evasion. And the claim here is that the Department of Justice has designated parents as domestic terrorists. You will see in the department's October 4, 2021 memo that they never used the phrase, from the Attorney General to anyone else in any of the documents produced, domestic terrorists, as a way to label parents. They are concerned, as local law enforcement is concerned, as state law enforcement is concerned, as federal law enforcement must be concerned, that threats are being carried out to local volunteers on school boards all over America. And apparently, the majority is here today to defend those who are making those threats. Taking time away from hanging out with the January 6 defendants at the DC jail, they're here today to defend threats like this. A threat that says, it is too bad that your mama is an ugly communist. If she doesn't quit or resign before the end of the year, we will kill her. But first, we will kill you. That was a threat sent to a child. These guys are defending that threat. They don't believe law enforcement has any business investigating that threat. I don't know what happened to the Republican Party that sided with law enforcement and law and order and public safety, but we're here today because they believe that threat is okay and no one in law enforcement should investigate it. Let's look at some of the other threats. Just like the subpoena he defied when the January 6th committee sent one to him, he's defying his own standard here today by not accepting what both departments are asking you to do, which is to be more specific in your requests, to meet with their staff and go through an accommodation process. So again, we can waste our time. You can stand with the January 6th terrorists. You can stand with the terrorists who made these threats. But if you're just a little more specific, I think you'll get everything you want from the witnesses we have here today. And I yield back. It's now 321 days since this subpoena was sent to Jim Jordan that he did not comply with. So it's comical that we are here today under Jim Jordan's leadership asking people why they don't want to comply with subpoenas. The guy won't comply with the one that was sent to him 321 days ago. Witness to a crime, the crime that has led to more arrests than any investigation in America. He's a witness being asked to do his patriotic duty and respond to a subpoena 321 days later, refuses. Also, since the last hearing of this committee to obstruct justice, Chairman Jordan is now interfering in an independent criminal prosecution. There's an investigation in Manhattan, also in Atlanta, also at the Department of Justice, into the former president. And Jim Jordan has sent a letter to the independently elected District Attorney Alvin Bragg of Manhattan. He is asking Alvin Bragg to commit a felony. Why is he asking Alvin Bragg to commit a felony? To help Donald Trump. Why is it a felony? Because if Alvin Bragg were to turn over what Jim Jordan is asking, Alvin Bragg would be violating New York law that says you cannot turn over grand jury proceedings. But that's what they're asking him to do. Again, the law doesn't matter if your client is Donald Trump. Again, I'm going to leave this up here in probably 200 font so Mr. Jordan doesn't need his glasses to read it. The same individual who posted this also posted this photo. There you go, Donald Trump, real tough guy, holding a baseball bat next to a picture of that independent prosecutor that Jim Jordan wants to commit a felony, Alvin Bragg. But you won't hear from this committee to obstruct justice any condemnation of what Donald Trump posted. They can't condemn him. They can't. So, in their silence, they condone it. And in these posts from Donald Trump, he incites more and more Americans to commit violence, like a woman who was arrested yesterday near Times Square with a knife, seeking to carry out an act of violence in Donald Trump's name. There's no credibility. There's no credibility on Jim Jordan's committee to obstruct justice. He can't talk credibly about witnesses not complying with subpoenas, and that's why he's not here. He wasn't at the last hearing. He often goes to subcommittee hearings. This is one of the only ones he doesn't go to. It's because there's no credibility. You can't ask people to comply. You can't complain when people don't comply when you are 321 days into your own non-compliance. Just doesn't work. So he won't come here. He'll ask my friend, Mr. Klein here, who's doing his best job to represent Mr. Jordan, to do that instead. But Mr. Jordan won't come here. Mr. Jordan will pull the old, I don't have my reading glasses trick when he's asked if he will condemn a threat of death and destruction by the former president. As Mr. Ivey pointed out, more kids will be victims of gun violence, and the committee that can do something about it will focus on this nonsense. But I know where Mr. Ivey and I are on the issue of gun violence. We're going to continue to stand up to protect kids. It's clear that these guys are only here to protect Trump. And I yield back. A 10-year-old rape victim was called a liar by the ranking member of this committee. And I know that he did that because he hates the president. It's clear every day from his statements and the statements from MAGA Republicans that they don't like Joe Biden, so they're going to call him a liar. That's fine. But what is worse is the reason that he did it is because he doesn't like what that rape victim represents, which is that this law from the Supreme Court, Dobbs, and the laws that will follow in states like Ohio and Texas and Georgia and other states will bring us government-mandated pregnancies for 10-year-olds, fourth graders, little girls. And to deflect from that, they choose to bully and beat up transgender individuals who represent fewer than 1% of Americans. And they try and deflect that because they don't want anyone in America to realize that they don't just want to wage a war on women, they're now expanding it to a war on little girls. So, Ms. Warbelow, let's go back to where we started here. Can a little girl, should a little girl make the decision to have a forced government pregnancy? Should she ever be put in that position?
She should have the opportunity in consultation with her parents and her medical providers to make the decision that is in her best interest.
And under this current law, does she have the opportunity to make that decision?
She does not under Ohio law.
Mr. Chairman, again, this is not about someone's ability to make a kitchen table decision with their family. It's about MAGA Republicans who want to control not just women, but little girls, and to put us into an era of government-mandated pregnancies without the opportunity to make that important kitchen table decision that will affect them for the rest of their life.